Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're looking at the Referee 2.0, the Dutch FA's recent work trialling video assistance in football. Now, I have three guests here who are going to be talking you through all the issues and providing you with the presentation. And we do welcome questions at the end of the session. So as you're obviously watching the video, please have some questions ready. The guys will be ready for those for you. Now, this was a 2-year pilot scheme. It took off in 2013 and included three things: goal line technology, which has been much discussion in the last few years, the deployment of a 5th and 6th official, and the use as well of video technology. Now, the work has been undertaken and hugely successful. It's been presented to IFAB, the International Association Football Board. This happened earlier in the year. However, they rejected the opportunity to authorise live trials. However, the Dutch FA did not stop there. Despite that frustration, the Dutch FA, they've approved continued testing with the aim of fair football matches at all levels and, of course, high-quality refereeing. So like any Football Association, they are constantly working to improve the training, development and overall performance of referees. So key to this, as we know, the supporting role of technology in professional football. Something the Royal Netherlands Football Association has advocated for many, many years. So this morning, as you can see, we are joined by Howard Webb, MBE, former referee, Steve Carter from Hawkeye, CEO, and also Guys de Jong, who's going to be explaining the Referee 2.0 project, how it's working, what the findings are, and how successful it's been so far, and a discussion with the gentleman as to how potentially it could be implemented into the professional game, and maybe we will see it one day in the Premier League and up and down the leagues in Great Britain. So for now, I'll leave you in the capable hands of Guys.
Thank you. Well, to start with, I'm sure that we will see it in the Premier League within now and a few years. So that's no doubt about that. We are also not frustrated about the process within the IFAB. We are very confident about the process in the IFAB. The IFAB said it needs the proposal needs further consideration, and that's where we are now. And to be honest, we are more frustrated about the results of a national team in this moment than about this process. What I try to do in the next minutes is just to show what we did in the last years and give some examples where we think that we could use the help of a video assistant. We don't call it a video referee, we call it a video assistant, in the same way as we have now a 4th official and a 5th and a 6th additional assistant during some of the games. Also, to go back before we start with the sheets, it's good to know that in 2011 we had an internal brainstorm session where we thought about how can we improve the fairness of the game and how can we support the referees more than we do now, because everybody we hear sometimes a lot of complaints about the referees, about decisions, but we do not help them while all the material to help them is available. And through all the technical developments with your iPhone, on your iPad, you can see everything within a few seconds, and everybody can use that information except for the people who have to decide about it on the pitch. That's what we said in 2011. So when the decision of goal line technology came in 2012, we asked some of the suppliers who were accredited by FIFA, how can you help us on the goal line technology? But even more, what do you think are the possibilities for the near future? And that's also how we came to Hawkeye and to Steve, because they had really great ideas how we could help the referees in the future. And that's what I want to show you in the presentation. We all know when we go back to the tournament in Brazil that there were a lot of discussions about decisions of the referees where we could help them within 10-15 seconds. We also know now that after the decision of the goal line technology, we now see it in the Premier League. I think since this season also in Germany, in Italy, and France. We have it in the Netherlands, a little bit more modest than the other competitions, but we do have it for at least our own finals, the cup final and competitions like that. But we also see that we can move it forward by the use of video replays. And that's also our mission statement. Our mission statement is not to help Hawkeye find a good business solution. No, our goal is to improve the fairness of the game. And we can improve the fairness of the game, and I'll show you also later with some of the data we gathered in the last 2 years. So what are the objectives we have as a football association? The first one is to support the referee. And now everybody's talking after a football weekend about decisions, saying, well, you can see here that he takes the wrong decision, but the referee has to do with his own vision and maybe the help of the additional assistants, but he can't watch the video material. And what we want to do is bring in an assistant who can watch the video material and help the referee on the pitch. We also will show you with the figures that we can increase the accuracy of most important decisions. We're not going to talk about all decisions. We don't want to talk with the video assistant about a throw-in on the midfield. We want to talk about the key decisions. We want to talk about red card incidents, penalties and goals. Those are the 3 decisions we want to talk about also with the video assistant. We hope that it also can speed the game up, that we can improve the player conduct, improve the respect for the referees, because you take better decisions than we do now. And there's also a lot of discussion that it will change the way of refereeing. On the other hand, when we look back in the last 10 years, what changed in the refereeing, then you see that it's changed from a very dominant man in the middle of the pitch to far more a team performance with the help of additional referees, with the assistants on the side, with the 4th official, all joining in the decision-making process. So it's already changing a lot, and there is no difference between the work of the 5th and 6th, the additional assistants and the video assistants. They can work in the same way. The only difference is that the 5th and the 6th official are beside the goals, and the video assistance is behind the camera. This is a short video showing how it works. No? The video is not there, I think. Look for somebody from technology. No? No? No video? That's a pity, because further on there are other videos, and if they're not there, then that's not really good for the presentation. So you can see that technology can help you, but when it's not working, it doesn't help you. But this video, I can tell you in short, would show that the way it works. We have a video assistant who's in a van beside the stadium. He gets the direct feed of the broadcasting company. So sometimes in the concerns you hear that that people say, yeah, now you are dependent on the producer, on the director of the broadcasting company showing you a replay. That's not true. What we do is using the direct feed of the broadcasting company, and the video assistant is his own producer, his own director. He can decide himself what video replays he wants to see. We use 6 cameras on the sides, on the back, so you always have a 3D vision on the situation. The video assistant watches on a big screen, direct feed, so not what you see at home. There's normally what you see at home. There's normally a delay of 2-3 seconds. He watches real time, and we have some other cameras in the 2-second delay. So he watches the big screen. As soon as he sees the situation which he wants to review, he can watch to the side, and he directly sees the replay. And if he wants to, he can always go back to see extra replays because there's an operator behind him. So that's the way it works. He wears the same headset as the 4th official, as the referee wears. Now there's in the data gathering we did until now, there was no contact between the video assistant and the referee. And what we asked for now to IFAB is give us the permission to do it with a direct contact with the referee. Hopefully that replaces the video a bit. So what decisions do we do we take into account with the video assistant? We talked about it in great length. And what we said is we want to make sure that we prevent the clear mistakes for crucial decisions, for key decisions. That's what we try to prevent. And when you go back from that, we stick to these 3 decisions. So the penalty decisions, the red card incidents, and goal decisions. Penalty decisions, of course, is it inside, outside the box, but also what's happening inside the box. Red card incidents, also clear, I think, that can be with a foul, and to see, was it a red card, a yellow card, or maybe a missed red card, like with the biting of Soccerex. You can go back, see it's a biting incident, and give a red card afterwards. And the last one, the goal decisions, and we said we only go back for the immediate build-up of the goal. So we're not going back 3 or 4 situations. We only go back to the last situation before the goal is scored. So if you make a foul by pushing away the defender, then give the assist and it's scored, then we go back to that situation. But when it's back 3 or 4 situations, we're not going back anymore. Then what's the evidence we gathered in the last 2 seasons? Besides the use of the goal line technology, we did 45 games now with the video assistant in an offline situation. Approximately 2,000 decisions were made in those matches, and we, according to the protocol I just showed you about the penalty, red cards, and the goals, came back to 51 decisions where we could have used the help of the video assistant. And in 12 of those situations, of those 51, the video assistant would have changed the decision and corrected it and given other advice. And it stays an advice. It's not a decision, it's always an advice. So for the people who are afraid that the video assistant is going to review all game, that's not what we want. We only want to review the most important decisions. And furthermore, you also see in the concerns, which we understand, that people say, well, we see that it will delay the game. But when you see now, when you take the average of those advices done in an offline situation, it could have been done it was done in 11 seconds. And we now try to see if we can speed up the time also by changing the commands given by the video assistant. This is the first video that works and shows a little bit of the work, hopefully.
Hi John, can you just check whether there is a foul on the goalkeeper?
On the far side. Oh, it's mayhem here.
Anthony confirming a foul on the keeper by West Ham number 9.
He's the one that's given
Okay, thank you.
Mignolet's going absolutely mental. Stuart Burt on the far side. I'm not sure they know. It's either a foul or it's not. What is it? What are you talking about? What's the goal? Oh dear.
So we see that after the consultation, the wrong decision is made because it was a clear foul, which could have been changed within 5 seconds, 6 seconds. You could have given the right advice. A next example.
Barry, could you please confirm whether that foul was committed inside or outside the area?
The
foul was committed inside the area.
Same thing here. You can see within a few seconds you can take the right decision just by using the replay. Another example.
Hi Bart, can you just confirm whether you think the kick on number 9 was intentional?
The kick looks intentional in my opinion. Red card.
We did take the funny part from our own competition, so no, but there was a clear card and a red card incident. So I think when you see those examples, you can see very clearly that within only a few seconds you can help the referee on the pitch just by giving him factual information, and that's what we want to do. We don't want to bring in another subjective opinion to the referee. No, we don't. We just want to give him factual information where we can help him. Then I think I have a last slide with the concerns. Yep, so here are we with the last two slides. And I think that's also very important. What you see now is that there are a lot of concerns about the way we should use video technology in football. On the other way around, it's crazy that we are here now in 2015 talking about if we will use it or not. And I think for everybody here who has children, I have small children, I can't explain my children why we're not using video replays in football, because it's so logical. It's just use your common sense to introduce it. And it's not a revolution, it's not something very big, it's just using your common sense by introducing it. And when we see the concerns on the screens, we do hear a lot of people thinking it will cause delays. On the other hand, we saw some of the examples where it's already causing delays when there is talks between the referee and his assistant. So I don't think this will generate extra time. And the other thing around is also we have to test it to see how it really works. And that's the thing we are asking now for within IFAB. Some of the decisions will be subjective in nature. There always will be subjective in nature, and the referee has to decide. But if we can help them with a 3D shot on the situation, and even in our Dutch competition, where we have 6 cameras on most games, you can always have a 3D shot of the situation. That's always helpful in the decision making. Maybe to see some of the other concerns. When you go to the fifth one, qualification and education of the video referees is very important. Of course it's important, and that's also after we had the decision of IFAB not to allow the experiment this season. They didn't say never, they said not this season, and they want to have further considerations during the advisory panels, which will be here in London, will be in London in October. We have to gather some new information, and as a football association, as the Dutch Football Association has as one of its key values, wants to be leading on this part, we said, well, whatever happens within the IFAB, we move ahead. And we now just started in the last week to do an assessment for the video assistant and started a training program where we now are already training the video assistants for the work as soon as the decision is made that we can do it live. So that brings me to the last sheet. Why test the video assistant? So why test the video assistant? The IFAB already said that they want to have further considerations and that we can move ahead. So why not going to test it? And the testing does not mean we're going to implement it. We're going to test it. We see in the Netherlands, it's the last bullet, that we do have support of all the unions in the Netherlands. So we have the support of the players' union, of the referees' union, of the coaches' union, of the clubs. The general public in the Netherlands asks for it, wants it. So why not go for the testing now and see within the next 2 years what the results will be. I just got a message that we can show the video from which we missed earlier. So I think we're going to watch it now before we conclude the presentation.
Dit seizoen is de KNVB gestart met de 2-jarige pilot Arbitrage 2.0. Een van de onderdelen van de pilot is de mogelijke inzet van een videoreferee. De videoscheidsrechter is dit jaar aanwezig geweest bij 22 wedstrijden in de eredivisie. Maar hoe gaat de videoreferee in zijn werk?
Tijdens de wedstrijd zijn er altijd momenten dat een scheidsrechter geholpen kan worden aan de hand van videogebruik. Denk daarbij aan wedstrijdbepalende situaties, rode kaarten, ernstig gemeen spel, penalties of bijvoorbeeld overtredingen en buitenspel voorafgaand aan doelpunten. Hier vanuit de bus, buiten het stadion, kijken wij vanuit verschillende invalshoeken mee met de wedstrijd. Er zijn diverse camera's in het stadion en dat geeft ons de mogelijkheid om iets snel terug te kijken en om de scheidsrechter daarin te kunnen adviseren. Nou, op dit moment doen we dat nog op de achtergrond, dus het is offline. We staan nog niet daadwerkelijk in contact met de scheidsrechter. Maar mocht dit project slagen, dan zou dat in de toekomst wel kunnen. En wellicht dat we dan daarmee ons voordeel kunnen doen tijdens de wedstrijden. Daar zie je hem ook.
Ja, ik zie hem. Kijk, even kijken.
Daar zo, camera 2.
Kijk hier. Leuk wel.
Sherry, de ruimte ligt er ook voor Kostic.
Geen buitenspel. Ik ook. Goed gezien. Kunnen we wel even nakijken hier. Camera 3.
Hij wil het zelf doen, dat doet hij ook.
Kostic nummer 11. Kijken. En geen buitenspel.
Nee.
Uitstekend gezien, zeg.
Knap hoor. Terwijl hij niet op één lijn loopt, zie je dat?
Ja, klopt.
Ja, daar gaat hij!
Ja, handbaks. Gaat hij erin, gaat erin, gaat erin, gaat erin.
Wil het geen buitenspel misschien? Ja. Op het moment van, dit is het moment van spelen? Nee, hij staat echt een meter. En wel of geen overtreding op blind? Let op, zometeen. Nee, oh, het is de botsing met zijn eigen keeper.
Prima. Goeie goal.
Ja.
Handbal. Ja.
Klasse jongens.
Links, camera 2.
Goed gezien.
Dit seizoen zijn er diverse momenten geweest waarbij een ondersteunende rol van een videoreferee de wedstrijd eerlijker en sportiever zou kunnen laten verlopen. Zoals hier in een duel tussen Havenaar en Schaars. Hier is goed te zien dat de scheidsrechter geen zicht kan hebben op de spelsituatie. Met de hulp van de camerabeelden is het dan mogelijk om de scheidsrechter binnen enkele seconden van een juist advies te voorzien. Maar we ervaren dit seizoen ook dat er beslissingen in de wedstrijd zijn waarbij het voor de videoref lastig is om te ondersteunen. Wat gebeurt er bijvoorbeeld als de scheidsrechter fluit voor buitenspel, maar dit niet het geval blijkt te zijn? De videoscheids kan niet ingrijpen als er eenmaal gefloten is. Dat zijn elementen in de wedstrijd waarbij het lastig is om de arbitrage te ondersteunen. Na afloop van de wedstrijd gaat de videoreferee naar de arbitrage van dienst toe om de momenten in de wedstrijd waarbij de videoreferee had kunnen ondersteunen te bespreken.
De cruciale zaken?
3-1 van Groningen, was aan jouw kant denk ik. Wel even een buitenspel. Komt de doelpunt uit? Nou, wij hebben dat meteen terug kunnen zien. Uitstekende beslissing, hij komt er echt achter.
De eerste ervaringen van de videoreferee zijn positief. De videoscheidsrechter kan de arbitrage ondersteunen in wedstrijdbepalende situaties. De KNVB is groot voorstander van innovatie en hoopt volgend seizoen de videoref daadwerkelijk bij wedstrijden in te kunnen zetten. Op deze manier kunnen wedstrijden eerlijker en sportiever verlopen. Dat is in het belang van de spelers, de clubs en alle 8 miljoen voetballiefhebbers in Nederland.
Yeah, and maybe to conclude the presentation, that's what we aim for, to make the game more fair and to support the referee on their difficult job. And hopefully you will support us on doing the live trial, and hopefully also IFAB will do that, deciding it next October or maybe the beginning of March. Thank you.
Thank you very much there to guys. Just Howard, bit of an obvious question, but obviously looking at that, things do seem very positive. Seems like this needs to happen, but would you have any concerns? Or are you very much behind this?
I think first of all, there's probably a misunderstanding in the public's eyes that referees would be against this because in some way it would undermine our authority or that we wouldn't want this interference. Speaking on my own behalf, but also on behalf of the referees I speak to on a regular basis and I've worked with for years, and even for the organisation that runs refereeing at the highest level in this country, the PGMOL, we're pretty positive about what's happening here, about the possibilities, the opportunities that this presents. In fact, PGMOL General Manager was quoted as saying that in an interview to the BBC last year, that we'd be keen to look at how this would actually work in practice, and myself and the General Manager last year went to Amsterdam Arena to have a look at this system in practice. So we are keen to look at anything that makes our life easier, makes our job easier, makes us more credible on the field of play, and ultimately means that we make less mistakes. It's interesting, really. You'll always have subjectivity, I guess, in refereeing and in decisions. And some people within refereeing would say, look, I don't really want this to come in because it's going to change the way the game is played, in the same way that people in the audience would maybe hold an opinion that they don't want to see this intervention as well because it's just not what we've done in football for years and years. I think, personally, that we would like to see it live trialled. I think whilst ever we don't go into a live trial situation, we will never be able to move the argument forward. Whenever there's a big controversial decision on a tournament, a World Cup, in the Premier League, this argument comes up again. It goes away for a few weeks, then it comes back again. We never move it forward unless we live trial it and just see exactly how it would work. And if the goal is to be 100% accurate on decision making, we'll never reach that, because what you think is a handball for a penalty and what I think or what somebody else thinks can vary. It can vary because football is a subjective matter. But what this system would do, it would rule out those real clear mistakes, the obvious ones that can affect the outcome of not only a game but also the career of a referee as well. Clear mistakes that have impacted upon colleagues of mine that have meant that they don't go to World Cups or that their careers are tainted by one particular decision. I've been in games on big stadiums in this country where I've given a free kick just outside the penalty area, and I've thought to myself, I would love the opportunity to check this with somebody very quickly. Did I get that call right? It's the last minute of a huge game, maybe a title decider, a World Cup round of 16 game, a Euro Championship quarter-final, or maybe I've given a penalty and I've thought to myself, I would like the opportunity to check that that decision is right, because this is hugely influential on the outcome of the game. So my observation would be we are generally in support of it, and we'd like to see a live trial take place.
Steve, CEO of Hawkeye, we've seen how impressive that it is there, and we know how quickly technology moves forward. Do you fear that football could be left behind when you look at other sports who are already using it?
Yeah, it's true to say that we have, we're involved in AFL. We're at London 2012, we covered more than 20 different sports there, so it's definitely moving forward in other areas. At the same time, I think it's important that people understand that the protocol for this is very different to what sports like rugby union have introduced. Not slowing the game down is right at the core of what HICE and the KNVB are trying to do, so that's something that we're working on.
And what about the cost? A lot of people talk about how expensive it could potentially be.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a more inclusive technology than goal line technology. Obviously, the ball crossing the line doesn't happen that many times in a season, whereas, you know, was it a penalty or not, a red card does, and the cost is lower than goal line technology. So my hope is it will benefit more leagues than goal line technology has.
When you go back to looking, Howard, at refereeing and the decisions that you have to take, do you potentially worry that if this comes into practice, that the responsibility of the referee or an assistant is then taken away and they become more reluctant instead of just going with their instincts first and relying too heavily on this?
Yeah, and of course there's a possibility that the existence of this will change the way officials officiate the game. For example, we looked at an offside situation where the video quite rightly said that if an offside flag is raised, that's the end of the matter. You can't reset the players up and go again. You know, that's the decision, and you're going to go with an indirect free kick for the offside. Would that affect the way assistants approach their job as assistant referees when it comes to offside? I guess inevitably, yes, it would, because they would know there would be a safety net if they keep the flag down and it leads to a goal. that would be checked by the video assistant. So it would change the behaviour of the assistants. That could be seen as a good thing because actually we're then giving even more benefit of the doubt to the attack. We're keeping the flag down and the attack is allowed to progress. That attack could actually lead to a goalkeeper pulling off a wonderful save that then goes out for a corner. This system would not allow the corner kick to be checked in terms of the offside because it only allows goals to be checked. The corner could come in and a goal could be scored. So I hope it's clear that this wouldn't lead to absolute perfection, but it would give us an opportunity to check certain crucial situations, I guess. I think also the football world would need to accept that, you know, if I as a referee did award a corner that should have been a goal kick in the last moment of a game, which is a stupid thing for a referee to do if he's not sure, because the corner could lead to a goal and the goal kick is just a goal kick. But if you give a corner and the corner comes in and somebody scores a goal, a winning goal in the last minute, there needs to be an acceptance that only certain things are checked. Otherwise, you end up checking everything. Throw-ins. You know, if I was refereeing at Stoke City when Rory Delap was playing, if I awarded an attacking throw-in, that was a goal-scoring opportunity in many cases from that throw. So, again, would you check the award of the throw-in to make sure it was correctly awarded to Stoke rather than the opponents? No, you wouldn't want to do that, would you? Otherwise, you're checking absolutely every single situation. Or maybe you could look at that somewhere down the line. We could keep reviewing the system and seeing what works and what doesn't work. But I think there has to be an acceptance that it's the key big decisions that we're checking in the first instance, and we must stick to those and accept that mistakes will still happen, but those mistakes will be minimised by this system.
We saw a lot of the boxes that have to be ticked before this potentially could be passed. Do you think FIFA maybe could be the biggest stumbling block, having to get it quality tested via them?
Well, I think it's difficult to predict what FIFA is going to do. You never know. But what we're doing now is trying to also convince them about the need for trials, as Howard already said, because we can talk about everything, make a lot of assumptions, but we only will know when we will really test it. And I think when you see the last considerations in during the IFAB meeting in the end of February, then you see now that they say, well, this is such a big decision that we have to think about it very well, but it's not anymore the decision they made in 2012, and they said, well, it's only goal line technology and nothing more. You see now that it's shifting a little bit, and I think, well, just using by your common sense, that it will be used in one way in the near future. What the near future is, yeah, that's difficult to predict.
Realistically, though, the near future is when?
Well, if they decided in October that they give the permission for the testing, we can start the testing this year. I don't think they will take the decision. Everybody knows that there are now presidential elections within FIFA, so it's a difficult decision to make. So I think most realistic is that they will decide it in the beginning of the next year, 2016. You can start in the season 16-17 with testing. We'll take some testing, and from 2-3 years maybe. So I think the final decision will be not any earlier than 2018, something like that.
Okay. We've got 10 minutes left on the session, so please feel free if anybody does have any questions just to raise your hand, and we'll get the questions to the gents. Yeah, go ahead. In the grey hair and the grey jacket. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Joseph Vandelos. I'm a sports lawyer from Barcelona. Thank you for your presentation. I think it was very, at least clear to me that there are only benefits coming from this technology, and that sooner or later it has to be approved. My question is double. The first one is, why do you think the IFAB is reluctant to approve such an obvious thing? Why is it taking so long? And the second one is, if you've thought from the legal perspective, how this will affect retrospective punishment or action, since from the presentation it was clear that the decision of the referee is taken previously. So how will you implement this? Have you thought of this?
Yeah, well, maybe to start, some of the things we also don't know. We just have to see by doing it and seeing how it works out. And of course, we have a lot of assumptions, which we think in the way it will work. But these kind of situations we have to find out by testing it. And the good thing is that we see now that in our competition that it's and the players and the coaches and the referees and the general public wants it. So that's a good thing to test it. But some of the things we have to find out during testing.
Just in terms of retrospective action, obviously we have a system at the moment whereby that can be taken for acts of violence, for example, on the field of play that are not clearly seen by the referee and aren't acted upon at the time. I guess that this system would offer. Yeah, certainly in our country here in England, that is the case. The question is asked of the referee, did you see this incident? And if the referee said, no, I didn't, then that opens the door for retrospective action to be taken here in England. I guess if this was implemented here in the Premier League, then the necessity for that would be reduced, because if a player is maybe seen as going to the ground, the video assistant can quickly check how did that happen. Yep. And I know from my work with the BT Sport this year that we have cameras that cover all of the pitch, high cameras that are covering all of the pitch. So we could check that there and then and actually give the benefit to the team that's involved in the game on the day, who's been offended against, rather than somebody receiving benefit the week later who wasn't connected to that game but receives the benefit of a key player for this team being suspended because of an action that he took against another team.
Should the referee then stop the play and decide after being informed of what happened, or should he take the decision and then change it?
It's difficult for him to stop the play because quite often these situations might happen away from his sight. Maybe two players are following up with play and an elbow is used, and the first referee knows is when the player is on the floor. And he's not aware of how that's happened. He could actually instigate the conversation and say, can you check how this player has ended up on the floor whilst the game continues? It might be he slipped, it might be that nothing happened, it might be that they just ran into each other by accident. And again, you know, sometimes the camera might be a long way away from the situation and doesn't give the clarity that we need, in which case we can't take action. I think one of the things that must underpin this entire live trial are some basic principles about where we go when there's some doubt. So, for example, I think that the referee's decision that's made on the pitch needs to be the sort of the default position, if you like. You know, he is still in charge of the game. He still makes the decision. He gives a penalty because he's seen enough to award the penalty. It's checked by the video assistant, and if there's some matter of subjectivity about the decision, the referee is still the main man. He still sticks to the original call, even though the video guy says, well, it's one of those that could go either way. Handball being a typical example. If the referee's called it on the game, we need to stick with the original decision. That needs to be fairly clear. Only if the referee's awarded a handball penalty, the video assistant checks it, and you can clearly see the ball hits the chest only. Exactly. That's when you turn the decision around. It's those clear situations that we could deal with.
Yeah, I think that was the point about the speed of the technology and why the average time required to take a definitive decision was 11 seconds, and we think definitive decisions can be made within 15 seconds. If the official is looking at vision and they need any longer, it's subjective. It's not a clear error. Let's get on with the game. The fans, you can still argue about that, about the pub afterwards. What we really want to get out of football are the definitive problems.
If you use the example of last week, I was working for BT Sport for Newcastle Arsenal. Mitrovic committed a red card tackle quite early in the game. It's a big decision. The referee, Andre Mariner, sent him off. I've heard other comments about that tackle. Some people felt it was harsh, some felt it was only a yellow card offence. What I would say is that on looking at that incident very quickly in the production truck up at St James's Park, I could see that it wasn't a clear error. It was clearly studs towards the shin. Some people might still maintain the view it was a harsh red card, but for sure the referee showed red card, and there would be no way the video assistant would turn that one around.
To the far left of the room. Thanks. We have just under 5 minutes left.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm Andrew Warshaw from Inside World Football. We know very well how conservative IFAB is. Those of us who've attended IFAB meetings over the years, it takes them ages. Steve will know this in terms of Hawkeye, how long it took them to even give that the green light. I'm wondering, particularly with Michel Platini, if he gets the FIFA presidency being so anti even goal line technology. I'm wondering, Joyce, the free flow of the game is the argument that IFAB throw up all the time about this idea. Can you give us some indication of how you're persuading them otherwise? Thank you. Well,
it's very simple, just by doing the presentations. But what we also see, but I agree with you that they say IFAB is very conservative. On the other hand, in 2013, the decision is made that the advisory panels will be there. So we have now the football advisory panel and the technical panel. And it is allowed for national associations like ours to bring in your own proposals. So we see now that we have the football advisory panel, where also former players, people from national associations, myself are there. Besides that, we have the technical advisory panel. And when we saw the discussions last February, in the football advisory panel, everybody advised positively towards the experiment. It's a pity, I think, that we were the first national association to bring in a proposal and it was not allowed yet, so that's a pity. But I'm quite confident that, that in the near future they will give the possibility for our national association to do this in a live experiment. And it's just, on the other hand, you can also look on it from the other side. When you are in the IFAB, you know that your decision will be taken all over the world. So I can understand that they think that it's a very important decision. So that's why we also say, well, you don't have to decide now about allowing it or not. You only have to decide about testing or not. And if the testing, you give the permission for testing for 2 years. And if after 2 years, everybody says, well, this is really a stupid idea of the Dutch FA and Hawkeye makes it a mess of it, then everybody can say, okay, we're not going to do it, we're not going to allow it. I'm sure it won't, but that's the discussion we have now. Only allow the testing, nothing more.
The slowing the game down point's really simple to deal with. You know, at the moment, I think the majority of clear decisions that the referees get wrong, Howard, in game-changing decisions, restarting the game typically takes more than a minute. Once the players have gone up in arms and approached the referee, you've got the code of conduct issues associated with that. You know, let's just go upstairs. There's no point in talking to him. And we've proven that, you know, we can get those decisions right with an average of 11 seconds and a maximum of 15.
One more question I think we have time for. A gentleman at the front.
Kevin Carpenter, Law in Sport, former football referee, now rugby union referee. So got a lot of questions I could ask about this, but I'll pin it down to about the speed of the replay. Has there been some consideration given to whether replays are given only at real-time speed or whether replays are slowed down? Because as we know, when replays are slowed down, even in rugby union, for example, with taking out players out in the air, it looks far worse in slow motion. And a yellow card can be upgraded to a red card very quickly when at full speed. And that's, in a way, to my mind, if you slow down the replay, that kind of undermines the authority of the referee. So have you played around with that and decided what's the best way to, I know it's about achieving correct decisions, but at the same time, whilst maintaining the credibility of the officials on the field, I think.
So the way it works at the moment is the guys are watching the live transmission as it happens, and we have all the angles on a 2-second delay. As soon as they're worried that there may be a game-changing incident that they want to look at, we start playing that through at 50% speed. So they've seen it happen live. They then look at the monitor. They see it through at 50%. At that moment then, we've got trained operators who know that, look, if it's a decision where it's going to look worse in slow motion, they'll rewind it and then they'll play it in normal speed for him as well. It's part of the process. One of the things that we're doing with HICE and the KNVB is every 5 weeks we have a training seminar with the officials where we talk through the best speed to immediately offer the replays out. We have a library of the 10 hardest calls from across the Premier League for that week. We run through it, and it's just an ongoing training process to make sure that we're going to do our best to get the answer right first time.
Just from a refereeing point of view as well, you're right, things do look differently at different speeds as well. It depends on the type of situation as well. I think at full speed it's impossible sometimes to call a red card correctly. You do have to slow it down and get a different angle and see the actual point of contact to give you a chance of getting the decision absolutely right. But maybe a very small bit of grappling, if you like, can look totally different on a still frame. You know, the shirt can look like it's a long way being pulled off the player's back, but actually in full speed it has very little impact upon the player. So again, I think it's down to the training. We need to try to be consistent across all of the video assistants. That's one of the key things, and credible in a way that's acceptable to the game. We don't want to change the way the game is played by this introduction. We want to be more accurate and give a better refereeing service, if you like, but not change the way the game is played.
Just quickly with offside decisions, is there any thought to having a sort of umpire's call margin of appreciation for assistant referees? Because as we say, I mean, the way I always did it was it should go with the attacker's benefit. If you're not sure, it goes to the attacker. But in cricket, they've given the officials that leeway to say, it's really your judgment, we're not going to interfere in that margin of error area. Is it just going to be, it's offside or not, by the letter of the law, to start off with?
Offside's interesting because there's an underlying sort of like principle with offside that's not written anywhere in the laws of the game, that the benefit of the doubt should go to the attacking team. But at the same time, the laws of the game define offside in terms of body parts, believe it or not. The hands and arms are not included in the consideration of offside, and yet you know, a toe can be, or a head can be, but when you're asking players who are moving at pace to be judged by the assistant on a ball that's coming from 50 metres away, to make a judgment based on body parts and apply benefit of the doubt, it's quite a difficult thing to do. So even on the video, sometimes I think we're going to have to again put some principles in place whereby the benefit of the doubt would go to the attacking team. We would need cameras absolutely bang in line as well to make that judgment. Again, it's not going to always be that easy to get an absolute accurate position. There's some technology we can use to turn the camera around to put it in line. And the broadcaster's using that now, and I know Hawkeye have got that facility as well. So we can look at using new technology as well, virtual technology, in the way that these guys do at Wimbledon and other tennis tournaments to get the decision right as well.
Okay, we'll be discussing keeping to time. We've run over time, unfortunately. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much to Steve, to Gijs, and to Howard as well. Thank you very much for that.